There's not a chance in hell that this is funny or gonna work. And when you see those flat, corny, late-night monologue jokes with no audience, Colbert, there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's Fallon. What they're doing is just like reading off of a teleprompter. So a bunch of really good joke writers wrote them some stuff, and then they're playing to the audience, and the audience is like laughing, so they get this feedback, and they know how to do that. They stand there, and there's applause signs. And then there's producers. There's the warm-up guy that's literally telling people to clock. They're like, okay, explaining to the people, okay, when Jimmy comes out, I want a big round of applause. Let's practice this right now.
Imagine waking up to find Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson have formed an unholy alliance. Their first mission? Absolutely vaporizing Jimmy Kimmel. No warning, no mercy, just 2 wild cards with microphones and zero chill. What started as late-night comedy turned into a tag-team takedown that left Hollywood speechless. Kimmel tried to clap back, but it was like bringing a kazoo to a cannon fight. This wasn't just a feud, it was a comedic demolition derby. Grab your popcorn, because this is the untold story of how Kimmel's world got turned upside down.
No,
How can Jimmy Kimmel live with him? Like, Jimmy Kimmel is a talented guy, and I don't think he's like an evil person or something, but he's made this deal where he just serves power and attacks anybody who challenges power. Like, how can, honestly, how can he look in the mirror and say, I'm doing something honorable? Like, how can he live with himself? How can his wife sleep with him?
Well, and this is why so much of comedy is not funny today. It's my chief criticism of like late night comedy, which I find unwatchable. I think it's totally unwatchable.
But also contemptible. I mean, they're collaborators.
They're just like the fact checkers, they're guardians of the narrative.
Joe Rogan is many things: stand-up comic, jiu-jitsu evangelist, mushroom philosopher, UFC shout machine. But above all, he's the patron saint of people who roll their eyes at the mainstream. And when he rolls those eyes toward late-night TV's current state, things get messy fast. He calls it unwatchable and contemptible. He sees the flat, corny monologues with producers cueing applause and warm-up guys literally telling people to clap, and he finds it utterly devoid of authenticity. For Rogan, Kimmel has sold out. He's made a deal to serve power, to attack anyone who challenges the narrative. How can a genuinely talented guy live with himself, he wonders, becoming a guardian of the narrative like the infamous fact checkers? Kimmel, once edgy, now soft launches therapy sessions under dim studio lights, a sad punching bag for mainstream approval. Rogan argues that comedy is supposed to punch up, to hold people in power accountable, not to become their Praetorian Guard. This, he declares, is why so much of comedy today is simply not funny.
Road to obscurity. Nobody's going to care anymore. It's like you're seeing it take place with late night television. Nobody gives a fuck about it anymore.
I know.
And it's slowly, you have a bad business model and you're not adapting.
Yeah, the creativity's gone for late night comedy, right? Like, that's not really a thing anymore.
It'd be one thing if his job wasn't to be a comedian and to do that, but his job is to be he's supposed to be funny, and comedians are supposed to hold people in positions of power accountable.
Suck up
Yeah,
to the people in charge.
Exactly.
He's their Praetorian Guard.
Yeah,
and it's like the self-hatred he must feel, because he wasn't always. That's my point. Yeah. I mean, Colbert has always been a hard partisan, talented guy, but obviously he's not a comedian. But Kimmel was a comedian. Like, how does he? I don't understand.
I don't know
how he can sleep.
The transformation of Jimmy Kimmel isn't just a stylistic choice, it's a full-blown paradox. He was once a jester, dishing out edgy jokes from a beer-stained couch. Now he's a moralist, wrapped in the smug scent of applause signs and think pieces, a Hallmark card with a teleprompter. For Rogan, this is comedic treason. You don't sanitize the punchline, you don't dress it up in virtue signals, and you definitely don't follow it with a tear-eyed sermon. That's not stand-up, that's stand down. Rogan questions the entire premise of Kimmel's act. This idea that you can mock regular folks 1 minute, then pretend to stand with them the next. That you can cash in on Hollywood glitz while pretending to be just one of the guys. Rogan dismantles that narrative the way a UFC fighter dismantles a papier-mâché opponent. Slowly, deliberately, and with unnecessary satisfaction. The creativity, he notes, is gone from late-night comedy. It's a bad business model, and it's slowly sending once revered figures down a road to obscurity because they aren't adapting.
He might buy into the narrative to the extent that he thinks it's morally wrong to joke about these these certain topics.
But it's not just that. He's like pouring hot oil on the peasants from the parapet. Like he's hurting anyone who challenges the king. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's upside down. The comedians should be poking holes in the popular narrative, not propping it up.
Jimmy Kimmel is. Like, truly. No, I mean it.
You
like,
said it,
no
not
amount
me.
of money is worth what he's doing, in my opinion.
In that case, do you think that's him or a writer? Can't you tell?
Jimmy Kimmel? No, it's him for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
good. That's a good one.
He's a comic.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, he used to host the Man Show. I mean, he's done some pretty outrageous shit back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, for hee-hees and haw-haws.
No, that's a good joke on top of a good joke.
Yeah, it's a good joke. Funny thing to say. He's had a real problem with Elon from the beginning of this thing, but it's like he's in this leftist thought bubble. He is in the most leftist thought bubble available, which is Hollywood.
Meanwhile, across the country, Tucker Carlson was adjusting his tie and quietly loading up the intellectual sniper rifle. Where Joe brought the punches, Tucker brought the smirks, surgical, controlled, and somehow even more devastating. His specialty is the velvet-gloved gut punch, the eyebrow raise that says, "Is this guy for real?" When Jimmy Kimmel stumbled into the realm of political commentary masked as comedy, Tucker didn't just call it out, he turned it into a televised dissection. Kimmel, once the guy who made jokes about celebrities falling down, now wanted to be Hollywood's moral compass. Tucker was not having it. He saw Kimmel not as a comedian, but as a failed pundit, cosplaying Jon Stewart with worse writers and a louder applause track. It wasn't rage. Tucker doesn't rage. It was bewilderment. Controlled, passive-aggressive bewilderment that screamed, how did this guy go from making fun of The Bachelor to lecturing people about democracy? Carlson methodically carved into the contradiction. He didn't need to raise his voice. Just pointing out Kimmel's evolution from class clown to sanctimonious substitute teacher was enough to turn the entire situation into a punchline. He noted how Kimmel exists in the most leftist thought bubble available, Hollywood, and that's where it got deadly. The more serious Kimmel tried to become, the funnier he looked in Tucker's frame. A comedian who forgot how to land a joke and instead settled for politically correct performance art. It was like watching a magician forget how to shuffle cards and just start yelling at the audience. Tucker sees boredom as a sin, and Kimmel, in his new form, was practically a televangelist of tedium. He analyzed the Kimmel effect as a symptom of a larger cultural decay, the loss of authenticity, the co-opting of comedy by the political machine. Kimmel, in Tucker's eyes, was a media puppet, a PR machine for the coastal elite who traded satire for sermons. And while Kimmel was busy bathing in the self-satisfaction of his studio audience, the roast hit like a Tesla in ludicrous mode, silent, fast, and full of smug energy.
Even the quote comedians, they were on propaganda duty too. Watch this.
He's also pushing U.S. intelligence to find evidence for this theory that the virus was accidentally released from a lab in Wuhan. That's his new angle to feed the wingnuts, to treat this virus like it was a conspiracy of some kind.
It should have never happened. This plague should never have happened. It could have been stopped. But people chose not to stop it.
What people? Tomorrow he'll blame the Spanish flu on Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. Imagine if you're a comedian and all of a sudden your cue card has all kinds of talking points from politicians and foreign governments on it. Don't read it. You degrade yourself and you become complicit in the greatest crime in history.
That sort of self-censorship and the idea of being a more empathetic person is a good thing, right? But as long as it's reasonable. But the thing is, the problem with that kind of stuff is it continues to go in the same direction where more and more things become forbidden and toxic.
Here's the real kicker. They weren't even teaming up. This wasn't a coordinated assault. It was two ideological opposites who independently looked at the same man and went, yikes? Joe Rogan attacked from the cultural underground, questioning Kimmel's relevance and realness. Tucker Carlson struck from the media mountaintop, questioning his authenticity and the decay he represented. Poor Jimmy was stuck in the middle, like a possum frozen between two headlights. One screaming about elk jerky and aliens, the other calmly citing historical context. It was a 1-2 punch from entirely different universes, a bipartisan spiritual audit that no one saw coming. When both Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson agree you're a walking contradiction, something's gone very, very wrong.
Jimmy Kimmel made a tweet back to him. He said, "Your pronouns are ass and hole," which is pretty funny. But then,
Did he really?
Yes. And so then I read that, and there was people saying, please don't joke about pronouns. It's transphobic to joke about pronouns. So they were chiding him for participating in a joke about pronouns.
So Jimmy Kimmel was doing it. He was doing it too.
Yeah, he was doing it too.
Yeah. No, he was being accused of joking about it too.
So they were upset at him, even though he was attacking the appropriate person. He was doing it in a manner which is also construed as being transphobic.
The job description of a comedian is not so different from the job description of a journalist, as traditionally constituted. Tell the truth about the powerful. Comedians are usually a lot smarter, more clever, and incisive than journalists, but that's what they're supposed to be doing. Almost none still do. Adam Carolla is one of the very few remaining comedians in the United States.
The fallout was hilariously predictable. Kimmel didn't respond. He couldn't. You don't respond to Rogan's deadpan takedown and Tucker's icy dissection. You just pray the internet scrolls fast. Kimmel's fans tried to deflect with the usual buzzwords. He's evolved, he's brave, he's speaking truth. But the reality was a man transformed into a walking contradiction. In Kimmel's world, the audience claps no matter what. They clap when the joke lands. They clap when it doesn't. They clap when he stumbles through a speech about justice that was definitely written by someone else. The clapping is endless, hollow, mandatory. But Joe Rogan's audience doesn't clap. They question, they rewind, they argue in the comments. They don't buy the theater. And Tucker's audience, they keep receipts. They'll let you bury yourself and then read the eulogy out loud with PowerPoint slides. In the end, Jimmy Kimmel didn't get canceled. He didn't get censored. He got clowned.
They mean nothing.
I agree. Wait until you hear about this guy named Tucker Carlson. You are gonna hate him.
The undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources.
Right. The big topics, the important subjects like these.
Well, it turns out leprechauns exist not just on cereal boxes. There are a lot of people who believe they have seen a leprechaun. Now it faces an even more profound threat. Zombie raccoons. Honestly, how much emotional support does a snake provide?
This wasn't bullying. This was an intervention from two men who shouldn't agree on anything, and yet somehow both landed on the same conclusion. Jimmy Kimmel became everything he used to mock. The tragic irony is, he probably thinks he's winning. Rogan, concerned with realness, found Kimmel as real as a gluten-free chicken nugget in a vegan air fryer. Tucker, obsessed with principle, found watching Kimmel cosplay as America's conscience while sipping organic tea in a green room probably triggered his last neuron of patience. There was no redemption arc, no heroic comeback, just two heavyweights walking away from the metaphorical ring, leaving behind the smoldering ruins of a man who forgot what made him funny in the first place. The job description of a comedian, much like a journalist, is to tell the truth about the powerful. Almost none still do. When the final punchline is you and nobody's laughing with you anymore, only at you, that's not just career decline, that's comedic exile. Kimmel had unwittingly become the mascot of everything that went wrong with late night TV. Overpolished, underfunny, and dripping with self-importance. He wasn't edgy, he was edible, bland, easy to swallow, and engineered for corporate safety. It's almost impressive becoming the common enemy of two men who agree on absolutely nothing, except maybe that cardio sucks. Rogan and Carlson orbit the same conclusion. Jimmy Kimmel is no longer dangerous, funny, or relevant. He's a TED Talk in clown shoes. The jester has become the preacher. The roster has become the roast. And not a single soul needed to shout it in his face. Rogan laughed it off. Tucker stared it down. The result was the same. Kimmel got absolutely dismantled. Not in a viral outburst, not in a public meltdown, but in the slow, clinical unraveling of everything he once stood for. And the worst part? He didn't even notice.